Hi everyone! In this video, I am going to walk you through how to answer these reading questions for the short story Spider the Artist. So I want you to flip in your packet to the reading questions and actually follow along with your own answers. So we've already read the short story Spider the Artist, and the story is separated into 4 different parts. So I'm going to go through and show you where to find answers for part 1 and part 2, and then I'm going to let you do part 3 and 4 either with a partner or a small group or independently. So when you have a question about a story or a book that you're reading, you need to first read the question and then go back into the text to find the answer. So our first question is, describe the narrator of the story. What do we know about her from the opening paragraphs? So right in this question, it tells us exactly where to look for the answer. So we need to go back to the opening paragraphs of the story in order to answer this question. All right, so here is the beginning of Spider the Artist. The very first line tells us some really important information about the narrator or the main character, right? She says, "My husband used to beat me." So we learn right away that she's in a physically abusive marriage. We also learn right at the beginning a little bit about the place that she lives and how she feels about it. So she talks about how she is behind her house. She lives very close to the pipelines, the oil pipelines, in a small house. All right, so we know a little bit about where she is. What else do we find out? We learn a little bit more here that her husband is a drunk, and that probably contributes to the abusiveness of their relationship. Here we learn more about her feelings towards the place that she lives, her village. So she talks about how the fish and the animals are dying in the creek because the water is polluted from the oil. The drinking the dirty, polluted water has really negatively impacted the men and women that live there. And she says right here, "My village was shit." So we see that the narrator does not think very highly of the place that she lives. All right, so I think, okay, we also learned some more about the narrator up here, that she is struggling to become pregnant, and that's another reason that her husband beats her. So let's take this information that we found in the text and put it as the answer to question number 1. Describe the narrator of the story. So her name is Emma. Emma is in a physically abusive relationship. Her husband is a drunk and beats her. She lives in a polluted village where the water and air are polluted by oil, and the oil factories there. She thinks her village is not a great place to live. So she seems really unhappy, and unhappy in her relationship and unhappy in the place that she lives. All right, question number 2. What is the narrator's most important possession? Why does it mean so much to her? So we know this is also right at the beginning of the story where we were just looking. She says right here, "My greatest, my only true possession was my father's guitar." So she talks a little bit about like her relationship with her father, how it means a lot to her because it was her dad's, and that is how her parents met. She said, "I wouldn't exist without my father's guitar," so this is kind of her escape from her abusive relationships. And she also says that one day it was my mother who stopped to listen to her father playing guitar. So this maybe means something to her because it connects her to her family and her father. It says her brothers weren't interested in learning to play, so her father taught her. All right, so let's take that information down here to answer question number 2. Her most important possession is her father's guitar. It means a lot to her. So you'll notice as I'm answering these questions, I'm writing in complete sentences, and I'm also rephrasing the question in order to answer it. So it says, what is her most important possession? And I start my sentence by saying, her most important possession is her father's guitar. Same thing with the second question. Why does it mean so much to her? It means so much to her because it is her escape from her abusive relationship, and also because it connects her to her father. All right, third question. Describe the zombies. What do they look like? Who created them and for what purpose? So let's start with this first question. What do the zombies look like? We got to go back into the story. I think it is on this page. All right, right here is where it describes what the spider zombie looks like. It looked like a giant, shiny metal spider. It moved like one too. That shows us kind of what it looks like. It also has many blue, shining, round eyes. So the eyes are made of this like glowing blue liquid. All right, so that is kind of the first part we need to answer that first question. So we can say the zombies look like giant metal spiders with glowing blue eyes. Okay, now we need to answer this question. Who created the spider zombies and for what purpose? So let's go back up into the story and read this entire paragraph here. So it says the government came up with the ideas to create the zombies. And when she says government there, she means the Nigerian government. So Nigerian government came up with the idea, and Shell, Chevron, and a few other oil companies supplied the money to pay for it all. So Shell and Chevron, these are two US oil companies. So they are the ones that paid for the zombies to be created. Let's see what purpose they made these zombies for. The zombies were made to combat pipeline bunkering and terrorism. It makes me laugh. The government and the oil people destroyed our land and dug up our oil, and they created robots to keep us from taking it back. So the purpose is the government is trying to protect the oil pipeline so that the villagers, the Nigerian people that live there, can't come to the pipelines and take the oil and use it to sell it and benefit themselves. So the people that actually live in this village are not able to make money or benefit from the oil that's literally in their backyard. And instead, the Nigerian government is selling this oil to the US oil companies. So they are the ones responsible for creating these spider zombies. Okay, so the Nigerian government had the idea to create the zombies, but the US oil companies paid for them to be built. The purpose of the zombies is to keep Nigerian villagers from taking any oil from the pipelines. Okay. So that leads us really well into our first question for part 2. According to the narrator, who does the oil from her village benefit, and what do the villagers get in return? So let's go to part 2 of the story, and we will figure out right away the answer to this question. So it says, some of these pipelines carry diesel fuel, others carry crude oil, millions of liters of it a day. Nigeria supplies 25% of the United States oil, and we get virtually nothing in return. Nothing but death by zombie attack. We can all tell you stories. All right, so this is our answer to that first question of part 2. The oil from her village benefits the US oil companies. That's what she's saying, that they get rich from this oil. And then she says, the villagers, the Nigerian villagers, get death by zombie in return. Okay. The last question we are going to go through is number 5. The 10th time the narrator meets her zombie, it makes something out of wire. What does it make, and what does this suggest about its intelligence? Okay, so we have to find the place in the story. It is about right here. Okay, we're going to read a couple paragraphs to find the answer to this question. The metallic substance descended faster, pooling in the grass beneath it. I squinted. The stuff was wire. Right before my eyes, I watched the zombie take this wire and do something with 5 of its legs while it supported itself on the other 3. The legs scrambled around, working and weaving the shiny wire this way and that. They moved too fast for me to see exactly what they were creating. Grass flew, and the soft whirring sound grew slightly louder. Then the legs stopped. For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of crickets and frogs singing, the breeze blowing in the palm and mangrove tree tops. I could smell the sizzling oil of someone frying plantain or yam nearby. My eyes focused on what the zombie had done. I grinned and grinned. What is that? I whispered. It held it up with 2 of its front legs and tapped its back leg twice on the ground, as it always seemed to do when it was trying to make a point that I usually didn't understand. It brought 3 legs forward and commenced to pluck out what was a medley of my favorite songs, from Bob Marley to Sunny Aid to Carlos Santana. Then its music deepened to something so complex and beautiful that I was reduced to tears of joy, awe, and ecstasy. People must have heard the music. Okay, so we know that the spider created something out of wire. It was making this with its legs, and the thing that it made, it then started playing music on it. So I'm kind of thinking that it created some sort of musical instrument. Maybe it's similar to a guitar or a harp or something like that, but the spider created a musical instrument and then started playing the most beautiful, joyful music, and MA is filled with awe and joy listening to this music. So this is our answer to question number 5. The spider makes a musical instrument out of wire and plays music on it. So this next question says, what does this suggest about its intelligence? So that is asking us to think like, this isn't just a normal robot, right? We think of robots not really having thoughts and feelings and intelligence, but this robot spider is able to appreciate music and build an instrument. This shows us that it is not only smart, but it's also like capable of feeling and enjoying music, appreciating beautiful things. So that is a really interesting thing to notice. It shows us that the spider is intelligent enough to create an instrument and also has emotions and can appreciate beautiful things like music. All right, so that was answering part 1 and part 2. I want you to go ahead and answer the questions in part 3 and part 4 with a partner or on your own.